and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen James Channel that brings you your everyday Rangers news. All for nothing, all for free, guys. All you got to do is smash that sub, ring that notification bell, and we'll continue to bring you all the views, updates, and news from the club. Right, we're going to talk about transfers, of course. It's transfer silly season. Everybody and their mother is being linked with Rangers. We have already signed 5 players, 6 if you include Oscar Cortez. Obviously, yesterday was the arrival of Thelo Asgard, the Norwegian central attacking midfielder from Luton for $3.5 million approximately. He looks a player. He got me. I was actually really excited by that one yesterday. Still am today. Buzzing. Obviously, Rangers today as well play against Club Brugge in their first pre-season friendly. Our first opportunity to see Russell Martin's boys play at Ibrox. Russell's already said that they were playing under heavy fatigue. And as I mentioned on the podcast last night, for me, it's not about the result today. It's about seeing a style starting to come through, a formation, a shape, starting to see, progress there, and starting to see some of these new players come in, play a part, and look decent. That's what we want to see. And the results kind of secondary a little bit in pre-season for me. You can have teams that win all the pre-season games, look amazing, and go on to look really shit in the league, and then you've got other teams can lose all the pre-season games and then win the league. Just the way life is. So look, at the end of the day, for me, results not too important. It will be a tough game though. Bruges are no mugs. They won their last pre-season friendly. I think it was 2-0. They have lost players. Taibbi left to go to Sunderland and Kuiper left to go to Brighton as the Premier League clubs raid a Champions League club for players. Right, we're going to talk about a couple of players, obviously, that have been linked with Rangers. We're going to talk about an old name, and we're going to talk about a new name. So, look, we know that Turgeman is still very much in Rangers' crosshairs, and that apparently it's still a person of interest to Rangers. There appears to have been no progress on this as yet. No kind of move forward on this one yet. And look, it is what it is. But, I think in terms of the striker position, a lot, as I've said a number of times now, depends on us selling one of Dessers or Hamza before we allow someone to come in. Now, it looks like Dessers could be staying, unfortunately. It was said that the Ajax Athens manager, after his team won 6-0 in a pre-season friendly, was asked about his forward options and bringing in further forward options, and he commented that he was very comfortable with the players that he's got. Now, that is a two-edged sword. One, it could be saying that he isn't interested in Dessers, he doesn't want to bring any players in, but by that same token, he isn't going to come and throw his players under the bus. He isn't going to say, well, of course I'm interested in bringing more players. They're not good enough. Because he's not going to want to undermine the morale of the players that he's got. So it's a double-edged sword on that one, isn't there? Now, Turgeman, we know, is a quality player. He's both-footed, he's quick, he's direct, he's young, he's strong. Looks a very talented footballer, and is someone that Rangers have been interested in for a long time now. However, there's been a new name kind of linked, and I think, to me, it seems to be it's one or the other. What has been indicated in the Israeli media is that Maccabi Tel Aviv are not looking to sell both of these players. They would not want to lose Turgeman and the player that I'm going to talk about. Now, of the two of them, I would say that Turgeman is more realistic an option for Rangers, given his price tag of around 5 million, 6 million euro. The player that is been linked with a move to Rangers, has also been linked with a move to AZ Alkmaar in Holland, has been linked with a move to Al Ain in the UAE, has been linked with clubs in the English Championship, and has been also linked with clubs in the English Premier League. And that is a Brazilian player who is goes by the name of the Brazilian magician. That's what he's been called by the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. His name is Wesley Patati. That's his name. Apparently he is reportedly of interest to Rangers, and a player that they've watched whilst watching Turgeman. Like I said, Turgeman I think is top of the list. He is the kind of main name for Maccabi Tel Aviv that we're looking at, the striker, because I think we do want to bring in a striker. However, given the fact that we know that Turgeman could be available for around 5 million euro, I think there's a possibility that we move for him if someone is sold. But Patati seems to be also on the club's radar. And like I said, I think there's a worry that if Maccabi Tel Aviv sell Patati, they won't want to sell Turgeman as well. So it could be that, that this player is seen as being a better option. He's a right winger. We do need a right winger. Since Cheney's left, we haven't really replaced that. Yes, we possibly could play Cameron out there, possibly could play Danilo out there, possibly could play Matondo out there, but none of them are real decent options and forward-thinking options. I think the desire had been to bring in someone like Kavama Poku. That fell through when he inexplicably went to QPR. So I think we've kind of moved on now. Now, this guy is 21 years old. He's been dubbed the Brazilian Magician. He scored 13 goals in 39 games from the wing in all competitions for Maccabi Tel Aviv and added a further 10 assists. So 23 goal contributions in 39 games. Looks a decent player. He joined the Israeli Giants. The Maccabi Tel Aviv are a big club in Israel. From Santos. Santos, obviously very famous Brazilian club, very famous for its youth system, bringing through some very talented players. I believe Pele came through that youth system in a move worth around £1.2 million. However, this is the big however. Patati is believed to be valued around €10 million. €10 million is about £8.5 million. Now, is that a price tag that would put Rangers off? Is that a price tag that the 49ers would be willing to stump up for a player? Is that something they'd be willing to pay? That's the big question. Now, he'd only made a handful of appearances for Santos' first team before he moved to Maccabi Tel Aviv. But with his first season abroad in Israel, he really impressed and looked exceptionally good. It's like I said, it's been reported by a number of Israeli outlets and French outlets that there is an interest from Rangers in this player. Like I said to you, there is indication of interest from Netherlands, Spain and England in the player as well. Now, according to the reports, teams from the UAE have already submitted bids of around €4 to €5 million for the player, all of which have been rejected by the club. Because like I said, they're holding out for somewhere in the region of about £8.5 million for that player. Now, there's been no Brazilian outlets that have reported this yet. It is very much Israeli, French that are reporting this. So, this could all be absolute bullshit. It really genuinely could. We know that about players being linked to Rangers, about Rangers wanting this player, wanting that player. We know that obviously with papers and news outlets been aware of Rangers fans' desires to sign players, particularly a right winger. The fact they've looked at Turgeman, the fact that this guy's talented, it could well be clickbaity. We know that, and I get that. I understand that. But, Patati looks to be a very decent footballer. I've been away, had a quick look at him. He's skillful, he's fast, he looks very, very talented. He's Brazilian after all. I mean, Brazilian wingers, tend to be fairly decent. Yes, there's the odd example of a shit one, of course there is. But in terms of him, Wesley Pinto Batista, known as Wesley Patati. He's 21 years old. So again, this is a player very much in that kind of, player trading model. That's why we're looking with this one. He's under 6 foot. He's quite small at 1.72 meters. He has Brazilian and Portuguese citizenship. We know that a lot of Brazilian players get Portuguese citizenship because it helps with moves to European countries. He's a right winger, but he's a left-footed right winger. So very much in the Cheney mould. So would fit very much back into the Rangers team the same way that Cheney did. He's under contract to 2027. However, there is a club option for a further year on that deal. He's played as a left midfielder, a left winger, a right midfielder, a right winger, an attacking midfielder, a centre forward and a centre midfielder. So you can see that he can play right across the front three, which could well be an attractive option for Rangers, bringing in another hybrid player who can play in all those positions. With Maccabi Tel Aviv, like I said, he made 39 appearances, scoring 13 goals and 10 assists. That's 23 goal contributions in 39 games. It's a pretty decent return for a winger. Obviously not the same as Cheney. Cheney obviously did a lot better. Santos, he made 33 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. What you got to remember there, still very young, still developing, still coming through the system. A lot of sub-appearances, not a lot of starts there. That sort of depressed the numbers a little bit. But for their youth, they're in the 20s, 32 appearances, 16 goals, so 1 in 2 from the wing. That's pretty good. 4 assists, 20 goal contributions in 32 for Santos' under 20s. Like I said, he looks a very talented player. However, I would say, just giving my opinion here, not stating fact. I'm giving an opinion, guys. If anyone slaughters me for this and says I'm clickbaiting, I'm not. I'm discussing stories. I'm discussing things that were brought up on the podcast last night. I'm discussing what's been said by you guys. I think it's my opinion is that this is unlikely. I just feel with the price tag, with the likelihood that Turgeman and Patati don't both leave the club, I can't see both of them coming. I think Turgeman is the more realistic option of the two if I'm pressed on this question. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think of Patati? What do you think of Turgeman? What's the more pressing need? Personally, I think they're both pressing needs. I think we need a right winger and a centre forward still in this transfer window, and I'm certainly hoping that will happen. Now, you know, Russell Martin made it clear there'll be further arrivals. He did say that in his interview that he gave the other day. So, you know, don't think that these 5, this is not the end of it. There will be, I think, 6, 7, 8. I think there'll be at least another 2 or 3 arrivals this window. I think then you'll start to see players depart, as we discussed on the podcast last night. But look, Patati's interesting. For me, Turgeman's more realistic. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, as for the game today, I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers. That's my prediction. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back to speak to you very soon. Remember, the final word is tonight at 8. Tune in. See you later.